It's been over a year since I posted a video, and I didn't really plan this out today. I just got a sudden urge to record, so here we are. It'll probably be a pretty short video today because I don't have a lot of time. So here we go. My name is Wendy. This is the Furiously Knit podcast. I think it's episode 5 or 6, but I will have to double check on that. I'm a knitter and a teacher. I live in Chicago with my twin daughters and my 3 cats and now my partner. 2024 was a pretty wild ride for us. I took a knitting hiatus. Life was really busy, really full. And now we have a new apartment. I have a new job. I finished some schoolwork that I had to get for a teaching endorsement. I did a fair bit of traveling, and knitting just kind of fell by the wayside, but it's winter now in Chicago and I've been getting back into the knitting. I've really been enjoying catching up on all my favorite podcasters, and let's jump into it. I don't have many finished objects. I'm wearing one of them. This sweater started as a Me Oh My tee by Park Williams, and I decided to give it long sleeves and turn it into a pullover. The original pattern is a short sleeve tee. This was knit in Noro Yukata, I believe. It's 50% silk, 25% wool, 25% nylon, I believe. I will put a link in the description to the yarn in case you're curious, but I love the stripes. I love the color, and I knew that I wanted to turn this into a sweater. I did have to do a little bit of stripe management on the front. So it's knit bottom up. So you start at the hem, and I was knitting up and the stripes were fairly thin. And then when you join in the round for the upper part of the body, the stripes got wider. I'm gonna try to show you. So the upper back, the stripes got wider than the bottom half. So that was fine for the back. I don't mind that, but I wanted the stripes to be pretty even in the front. So I just, how did I do it? It wasn't helical knitting, but I was just sort of like alternating balls to keep the stripes somewhat close to the same width. I did not do any yarn like stripe management on the sleeves. But I really like how they turned out. Knitting with this yarn was interesting. It's very thick and thin. So in some parts of it, I was knitting with what felt like bulky weight. And then in other parts, it would, feel like a fingering. But I really like the sort of rustic art teacher preschool teacher look of the sweater. That's kind of exactly what I was going for, like an eccentric art teacher. But you know what else it also reminds me of? So I was a teenager in the 1990s, and this reminds me a lot of the striped sweaters that we wore in the 90s. I don't know if anyone else feels me on that, but I absolutely love it. It's drapey, because of the silk. I really like the fabric that this knit up into, and I've been trying to wear it to school to teach, but my current building gets really warm, so I'm actually not really able to wear a lot of my hand knits to school anymore, which is sad, but I'm wearing it today to go out and run some errands, and I love it. I would love to knit this pattern again and do a Me Oh My t-shirt. for the upcoming summer in Chicago. So I'm gonna start thinking about what yarn I would use for that. But I love the pattern. I did not do a fantastic job picking up stitches for the sleeves. You can kind of see it's a little bulky on this side, but doesn't bother me. I did a 1x1 ribbed collar, and I attempted to do a stretchy bind off. I think I followed the one that Park recommends in the pattern, and halfway through binding off, I was just noticing that there was a lot of like crinkliness to the bind off, so I stopped doing that and I went back to like a standard bind off. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna rip it out and do it again. But it's not bothering me. It's a little bit crinkly or wavy on one side, but I don't think it's anything that anyone is gonna notice, so we're good. And I love her. I love the funky, I believe this is my first striped sweater, and it is, you know, the stripes are self-striping. The yarn was self-striping, but I definitely want to have more striped sweaters in my life. So really happy about this one, and I'm gonna move on to my next and final finished object. I finished this last spring, I think March or April of 2024, but I haven't podcast since then, so this is her debut as a finished object. This is the Weekender Crew by Andrea Mowry. I did not add the pockets. There's an option to knit 2 pockets for the front of the body. I did not do that. I loved the Weekender pattern, but I hate boat necks on myself. So when she released the Crew, I jumped on it. And I knit mine in Cascade Tweed, Aegean Tweed in the color Olive. So just really, really pretty tweedy green yarn with yellow and beige and white tweedy bits. This is another fantastic teaching sweater that I cannot wear because it's too warm. I will try to put some footage of me wearing it so you can see how it fits. I actually haven't blocked it yet. And the one thing that I'm not crazy about is you can't tell right now, but when I'm wearing it, it kind of blouses out a bit down here over the ribbing. So this last part of the body right before the ribbing kind of blouses over. So it's got like a little puffy effect right as it goes into the ribbing. And I want this to be like more of a straight, smooth line going into the ribbing. I do think that blocking would totally take care of that. And that's just laziness on my part. I was just too excited to wear it when I finished it. And but now that I can't really wear it to work, now would be the time to block it. So hopefully that'll take care of that. The pattern, you guys are probably familiar with the Weekender pattern, but I just love this ribbed detail on the top of the shoulders, and these like faux seams, the slip stitch seam that runs all the way down the front and all the way down the back. It was just really, it was a really fun, engaging pattern to knit, and I felt like it knit up really quickly. And this was the first time I'd ever used Cascade Aegean Tweed. I'm a huge Cascade girly, a huge fan of the Cascade 220 yarns, as you will see. But I had never used the Tweed before, and it is lovely. It kind of feels linty. It feels linty to me. I don't know, I don't know how else to describe it. It feels very dry and linty, but it's also soft. It's next to skin soft for me. It looks rustic and it behaves rustically, and it feels a little rustic, but not in an itchy way or an uncomfortable way. So I loved the pattern. I just feel like her silhouettes are maybe not the most flattering on my body. This one is great because it's kind of almost like, it's almost got like an A line coming down from the body. I don't think I did any modifications except maybe to add a little bit of length because I have a freakishly long torso, and I typically always have to add some length, but yeah, I think that was it. But this Weekender Crew is another amazing pattern. I love the yarn. I highly recommend the yarn if you're looking for like a tweedy yarn. They've got some really beautiful colors, so this one's great. So I have a few works in progress. I'm gonna start with my oldest one, which is something that I started almost a year ago in spring of 2024. This is the Front Porch Pullover by Andrea Gaughan. And I'm knitting it in Cascade 220 Sport in this really gorgeous royal blue. Again, I love the Cascade yarns so much. This one is this a Sport? I believe it's the Sport weight. It just feels really airy and lofty and squishy and soft. I'm holding it on its own. And I actually think I'm knitting, I think the second size. I think that this size is probably gonna fit my daughters better than myself at this point. So this might actually end up being given to one of my daughters. But so far I'm enjoying this pattern a lot. It's a pretty standard drop shoulder stockinette pullover. And it was flying off my needles until I stopped knitting last year. So I need to get back to this one because it would be great to get this done before spring so that somebody can wear it. Somebody can get some use out of it. But I'm really excited. This shade of blue was one of my favorite colors in recent years. And my daughter, one of my girls, has bright blue eyes, so I think this is just gonna make her eyes pop, so we'll see. She doesn't really like to wear sweaters. She's a sweatshirt hoodie girl, but we'll see. All right, I have one sock on the needles. I knit the first sock of this pair last year or the year before. So this is the sock number 2. This is the Morning Coffee Socks by Crazy Sock Lady. And I knit the first one long enough to be like a boot sock. So I have to just keep reminding myself that I'm like, okay, I'm done with the leg. I'm ready to move on to the heel flap and gusset, but I have to just keep telling myself that I have to keep going. But I'm almost there. We're getting closer. This is another one that I just really need to sit down and get cracking on finishing because it's February and we don't have that much boot weather left. So I need to get this done. The pattern is fun. It's a six round repeat. It's really easy to memorize, and it makes just a really nice texture. a little bit different than my usual vanilla sock pattern that I do. I do not remember what this yarn is. It's a sock yarn with nylon. I feel like it might be from Dye Mad Studio. I will have to look back and figure that out, but I will put it in the description. The color's really interesting. It's all shades of teal and turquoise, and then some like really deep green mixed with some coral and pink and salmon. You know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of like copper that's oxidized. Because the pinks in this are kind of coppery. And then you have the green. So it reminds me of like the Statue of Liberty or something, the color. But yeah, the morning coffee sock pattern by Crazy Sock Lady. It's very enjoyable. This yarn is, it feels a little bit crunchy, but I think once I block it, it's gonna be super, super soft. So I'm excited about this one. I miss knitting socks. I've been wearing all of my hand knit socks a lot, to the point where I actually wore through my first pair of hand knit socks. Those socks were knit in, it was a non-superwash. Oh, it was Rosa Pomar Mondine, which this is a different colorway, but it was the Mondine, which is 100% wool. It does not have nylon to reinforce it. So, oops. They were my favorite pair of hand knit socks, and I just wore holes right through the bottom. So I think that tells me that I need to knit more socks, because if I'm wearing them so often that I'm wearing through them, I need to get more in my rotation. So we're going to be working on that. Okay. Another work in progress that I've been working on for a few weeks is a sweater number 23 by My Favorite Things Knitwear, which is an oversized pullover. I was inspired by Millie of What Millie Makes, which is my new favorite knitting podcast. I'm obsessed and I can't get enough. But she knit one of these sweater number 23s in Woolfolk 2, I believe is how you pronounce it. It's spelled Tage. And I already had some in my stash. So because I already had some of this yarn in my stash and I wasn't sure what to do with it, I really loved Millie's version of this sweater. And this yarn is super airy, and it's a wool alpaca blend. So it's really, really soft. It's really airy. It's very drapey, and it's just so lightweight. And because of the nature of this yarn, with the alpaca, I think it's going to be super, super warm. It might be a little bit too warm, but I'm hoping that the oversizedness of it will help with that. It's just going to be really oversized, airy. I'm hoping that I will be able to wear it. I'm hoping it won't be too warm, but I'm really, really loving this pattern. I think that this little detail along this top of the shoulder is just gorgeous. And it's honestly like, this just seems like the perfect yarn for this pattern, because who doesn't love a giant, snuggly, cozy, oversized pullover? I'm knitting it in color 18 is the colorway. And I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with this fabric. The knitting process itself with this yarn is not my favorite because it kind of feels, so I don't know if you'll be able to see, but it's almost like a boucle yarn. It doesn't have loops, but the way that the yarn is spun like around the core, hopefully you can tell what I'm talking about. It kind of behaves like a boucle yarn as you're knitting. So my knitting, the tips of my needles keep getting caught in the yarn. It's just not the most fun to knit with because it feels slow to me because I feel like I'm kind of, you know what? I think I've talked about this before. This yarn was originally I was knitting this up into a different sweater. I think I talked about how I kind of felt like I was ripping through the yarn at certain points when my needle tips would get caught up in the yarn. So I don't love the knitting process and it feels kind of like it's slowing me down. But I think it's going to be absolutely worth it because this is just beautiful, beautiful, gorgeous. So that's my sweater number 23. I've never knit a My Favorite Things pattern before. So far, it's great. And I've got my eye on some other My Favorite Knitwear patterns. So that was my sweater number 23. And I have one more sweater on the needles right now. It's no wonder I'm not getting any of them done. She is a test knit for the Knit Purl Girl, Sophie. This is the Luz Sweater. It's knit in a strand of fingering held with a silk mohair, which is what I'm doing. I'm not using the recommended yarns. I'm using my old favorites. Cascade, the bottom is Cascade fingering, and this is Knitting for Olive Kid Silk Mohair. I think this is the color Oatmeal. I'll put the color names below. And it's a little bit funny because I have two light gray sweaters on the needle. Well, actually, looking at them now, there's a definite difference. But I guess I'm having a gray moment. That's fine. So this Luz sweater is the top half, and then the top of the sleeves are knit up in this really pretty slip stitch pattern that's really fun to knit. And then sort of down lower, the lower part of the body is just gonna be stockinette. This sweater, I haven't gotten to them yet, but has some really pretty details on the collar and the cuffs of the sleeves and also around the hem. So it's not your standard stockinette sweater, which I love. It's a little bit more interesting than just a sea of stockinette. And I feel like it's just going to be the perfect transitional sweater from winter into spring. I feel like it's going to be great for Easter and, you know, those really chilly, raw days that we have in Chicago in the spring. The fabric is really, it feels really airy and delicate and light. So that's my Luz sweater. I do not have a ton of acquisitions because not only was I not knitting, I was also not really buying yarn last year. I do have a couple of things that I wanted to show you because they feel a little special. The first one is this Retrosaria Mondim by Rosa Pomar. This is the sock yarn. It's a fingering weight yarn. I bought this yarn at the Rosa Pomar shop in Lisbon. I went to Portugal last year in June, and this yarn shop was on my list, and it was really one of the highlights of my trip. It was so much fun to go and see the yarn in person. This particular skein was hand dyed by Divergent Yarn, and I don't see a colorway name on here, but it's just gorgeous. Greens and blues and yellows. So my initial thought was, oh, I'll knit some socks with it. But having just worn through a pair of socks knit up in this yarn, I don't know that I want to turn this into socks, because this yarn feels really precious to me as a memento from my trip. So if you have any ideas, let me know. It could be, oh, I was gonna say a hat, but I don't think I have enough for a hat. Maybe a little Sophie scarf might be cute. Or maybe a pair of socks that I just wear at home and don't put into my shoes might help. Or if I just don't wear them that often, because I really wore my other Mondim socks a lot. They were really warm, so I wore them all the time, and I'm just not sure I want this yarn to last. So if anyone has any suggestions, please let me know. But yeah, I keep this like sort of out displayed in my bedroom because I just think it's so pretty. And yeah, that's it. That's it for that. My other acquisition, I just ordered some kid silk mohair from Fiber for the People. This is her Jupiter colorway, and I got 2 skeins of kid silk mohair. I am not sure what I'm going to knit this up into, but I just loved the deep navy background color with the rainbowy speckles. You know I'm a big rainbow speckle girl, so yeah, this could potentially be turned into a Metropolitan pullover by Tori Yu. But TBD, we'll see. In the meantime, I caked it up just so that I could get a better idea of what it looks like caked up, and it is stunning. So I'm really excited to knit with this. One last thing I am excited about. A few years back, knit my daughter a pullover. It was the Petite Knit No Frills Junior pattern. I ordered a special yarn. It was a Cinnamoroll colorway. Cinnamoroll being one of her favorite Sanrio characters. So I knit her the Petite Knit No Frills Junior. She has outgrown it. So the sweater doesn't fit her anymore. So we decided to frog it. So it's in the process of being frogged. This is a DK weight hand dyed yarn. I will put all the details below. So I'm going to work up a new sweater for her out of this yarn. I am thinking maybe a Lento would be nice. This is a DK weight, so in theory I should be able to hit gauge for the Lento. So yeah, I've never frogged a sweater and turned it into something else, or like a full complete sweater. So it was a little bit sad, but ultimately it's going to be great for her to have something that actually fits her. So that's her Cinnamoroll Lento to be. Okay, I think that's all for now. Thank you so much for joining. My next video is probably going to be a 2025 knitting plans video, because now that I'm back into the knitting, my brain is going 1,000 miles per hour, just fixating on all the things that I want to knit. So I'm not going to do a make 9 because I can't commit to that. But I do have some plans. I talked a little bit about them here, but I'm going to get more into it in the next video. So I hope you're all doing well. It's great to be back, and I will see you next time.